My heart stopped as flames consumed my wedding dress. The custom gown with my grandmother's antique lace, the one I'd spent months designing, was now just a blackening, melting nightmare before my eyes. Diana Beckman, my own mother, stood in the historic bridal suite of Philadelphia's Historical Society building, her expensive lighter still clutched in her manicured fingers, her face a disturbing mixture of satisfaction and righteous indignation. "Now you can't wear this monstrosity," she declared, her voice trembling with emotion. "Griffin deserves to see you in a proper designer gown, not this homemade disaster. My daughter needs to look the part of a successful architect's wife." She adjusted her silk scarf with a dismissive flick, the triumph in her eyes making my stomach clench. "My name is Lydia Beckman, and at 36, I never imagined I'd be watching my wedding dress burn to ashes 30 minutes before walking down the aisle, destroyed by my own mother." My three bridesmaids stood paralyzed with shock, their elegant blue dresses stark against the smoldering fabric at my feet. "Mom," I said, my voice unnervingly calm despite the hurricane of emotions swirling inside me. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers. "You have absolutely no idea what you've just done." She rolled her eyes, the gesture so familiar it sent a wave of childhood memories washing over me. "What I did was save you from embarrassing yourself and our family. You think because you plan other people's weddings, you can design your own dress? You should be wearing Winifred's creation from my boutique, the one everyone expected. Griffin deserves a bride who understands her position." I pressed record on my phone, watching my mother's face as I did. My bridesmaid Zoe quickly opened the tall windows, trying to clear the acrid smoke now filling the historic room. "The wedding's off," Diana continued, waving her hand as if dismissing an incompetent employee. "I'll explain to everyone that you came to your senses about that dress. Griffin might be disappointed initially, but he'll appreciate my intervention eventually." "Are you certain about that?" I asked, turning my phone screen toward her. On it was a perfect view of everything happening in our room. My ruined dress, my mother's self-satisfied expression, and the lighter still in her hand. The color drained from her face. What is that?" "The wedding video diary," I explained, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. "Piper has been recording the entire preparation process for a keepsake. It's been running for the past 20 minutes, capturing final dress adjustments, the bridesmaids getting ready." I paused, meeting her eyes directly for perhaps the first time in my adult life. "And you destroying my wedding dress while finally saying out loud what you've always thought about my choices. Delete that immediately." Diana lunged for my phone, her perfectly styled hair coming undone. "You manipulated me. You knew I would react this way." Madison stepped between us, her teacher's authority evident in her stance. "Mrs. Beckman, everything you just did and said is recorded. Maybe you should think carefully about what you do next." My phone vibrated with incoming messages. Piper glanced at the screen and inhaled sharply. "It's Griffin. He's coming here right now." My mother's eyes widened with sudden uncertainty. She looked frantically around the elegant room as if searching for an escape route. "This isn't what it appears to be. I was simply testing if the fabric was properly treated. Wedding dresses should be flame-resistant for safety." From my phone came voices of the wedding coordinator and photographer, who had witnessed everything. The video now showed Griffin's father, Malcolm, rising from his seat with a grim expression that suggested he'd been expecting something like this. Most revealing was Griffin himself, no longer calmly waiting at the altar, but rushing through the garden pathway, determination etched on his face. "Lydia," Zoe whispered, clutching my arm, her fingers digging into my skin. "What do we do now? Should we start calling guests to cancel?" I stared at the charred remains of my dream dress, now just blackened scraps, on the antique hardwood floor. The grandmother's lace, the last piece I had of her, reduced to ashes. The practical part of my mind, the part that had built a successful business planning other people's perfect days, was already formulating contingencies. "No," I said firmly, a strange sense of liberation flowing through me. "This wedding is happening. The only thing that's changing is my relationship with my mother." The door flew open with such force it crashed against the wall. Griffin stood there, still in his tailored suit, his eyes darting from my tearful face to my mother to the charred remains of my dress on the floor. Behind him, The wedding coordinator and his father Malcolm appeared, their expressions a mixture of horror and barely contained fury. Diana, Griffin said, his voice eerily controlled yet vibrating with anger. Please tell me I didn't just watch you destroy Lydia's wedding dress while declaring she isn't making the right choices for her life. My mother's demeanor transformed instantly, like switching channels on a television. Darling, you're misunderstanding everything, she cooed, her voice honeyed with practiced manipulation. I was protecting Lydia from making a terrible mistake. This dress was completely inappropriate for someone marrying into your circles. I was merely demonstrating why she needs the designer gown from my boutique. Enough. Griffin's voice cut through the room like a thunderclap. I heard every single word. I saw what you did. He turned to me, his expression softening instantly, eyes filling with such tenderness my heart ached. Lydia, I'm so incredibly sorry. I knew your relationship was complicated, but I never imagined she'd go this far. I carefully stepped around the smoldering fabric, my grandmother's destroyed lace crunching beneath my feet. The sound made my chest tighten with grief. It's not just a dress, I said, my voice finally breaking. It's years of control, manipulation, and disapproval all coming to a head on what should be the happiest day of my life. Griffin took my trembling hands in his, either not hearing or deliberately ignoring my mother's indignant protests. What do you want to do, Lydia? This is your call entirely. Whatever you decide, I'm with you 100%. Before I could answer, Malcolm Hayes moved forward, his weathered face set in stern disappointment as he addressed my mother. Diana, I've kept my thoughts to myself out of respect for Lydia, but this crosses every conceivable line. His voice carried the weight of a man who had built skyscrapers through sheer determination. I warned Griffin months ago about your controlling behavior. Malcolm, please. My mother pleaded, adopting a wounded expression. You must understand, Lydia needs guidance. She's always been impulsive and rebellious. I was merely, as opposed to Lydia, who built a thriving business from nothing and has planned flawless weddings for some of Philadelphia's most prominent families. Malcolm interrupted, disgust evident in his voice. You've destroyed not just a dress, but a piece of your family's history out of pure selfishness. My phone kept buzzing with notifications. I glanced down to see messages pouring in from guests and even some celebrity clients who had heard what happened. The venue coordinator hovered awkwardly in the doorway, clearly uncertain how to handle this unprecedented situation. Miss Beckman, she said hesitantly, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. The guests are getting restless. Should we make some kind of announcement about what's happening? I stared at the ruins of my dream dress again, then at my bridesmaids who looked ready to tackle my mother if I gave the signal. A calm clarity washed over me, the same feeling I got when solving seemingly impossible logistics problems for my highest profile clients. Tell them there's been a slight change to the proceedings, I said with newfound resolve, but the ceremony will continue in 20 minutes as planned. My mother let out a derisive laugh. And what exactly? Your slip? This isn't one of your tacky budget weddings where you can improvise. In my contingency dress, I interrupted, my voice steady with years of suppressed defiance finally breaking free. The room fell completely silent. Griffin looked at me with surprise mingled with admiration. You have a backup wedding dress? I hadn't told anyone, of course. Years of dealing with my mother's sabotage had taught me to always prepare for her interference, even on my wedding day. Piper, I turned to my business partner and bridesmaid. Get the garment bag from the locked cabinet in my planning room. The one labeled Plan B. Piper's eyes widened in understanding, a slow smile spreading across her face. The ivory aligned with the pearl embellishments? The one we kept secret from everyone? Malcolm stepped forward, pulling out his phone. I'll have someone bring it here immediately. Where exactly is it located? As they coordinated the retrieval, I turned back to my mother, who stood frozen with disbelief as her plan disintegrated before her eyes. Did you honestly believe destroying my dress would stop this wedding? After everything I've overcome in my life, most of it because of you? But everyone will know, she hissed, gesturing at the video still recording. Your professional reputation. Yes, I agreed, surprising myself with the liberation I felt. Everyone will know exactly what happened. and they'll also see what happens next. I looked directly into the camera, knowing my team and many guests were watching. To everyone waiting, thank you for your patience. The ceremony will proceed shortly. Sometimes the most beautiful moments come after our carefully laid plans fall apart. Something I've learned both as a wedding planner and as a daughter. Supportive messages immediately flooded my phone screen. Griffin squeezed my hand, his eyes shining with something that looked remarkably like awe. Diana, Griffin said with quiet authority, you need to leave. Malcolm will ensure you get home safely. You are no longer welcome at our wedding. My mother's face contorted with genuine shock, perhaps the first authentic emotion I'd seen from her all day. You would let her choose this path? After everything I've sacrificed to make her who she is today. After what you've revealed about yourself today, I answered before Griffin could. 36 years of finding my voice culminating in this moment. Absolutely. The next 20 minutes erupted in a flurry of purposeful chaos. While Diana was firmly escorted out by security, Malcolm insisting with gentle authority, that saw no resistance, my secret contingency dress arrived, carried reverently by Piper. The historic bridal suite transformed into a high-energy fashion emergency headquarters, with my bridesmaids, the venue styling team, and even several fashion industry guests who eagerly volunteered their expertise. This is absolutely perfect, Madison gasped, carefully removing the ivory A-line gown, with delicate pearl embellishments from its protective garment bag. You've been planning for this possibility all along, haven't you? God, it's even more beautiful than the first dress. The venue's master seamstress, who I'd specifically requested months ago, knowing her exceptional skills, worked with breathtaking precision, making the few necessary adjustments with practiced hands. Through it all, I felt a strange sense of calm washing over me, the same feeling I experienced whenever one of my high-profile wedding plans encountered an unexpected challenge. Meanwhile, Griffin had returned to the ceremony space to address our waiting guests personally. Through the video feed, which Zoe had strategically positioned to capture the entire scene, I could hear his warm, confident voice reaching everyone. Today began in a way none of us anticipated, he was saying, his architectural training evident in how he carefully constructed each word. But Lydia has taught me something profound in our time together, that the true foundation of a marriage isn't built on perfect circumstances, but on how you navigate the imperfect ones as a team. Today, before we've even exchanged rings, we've already weathered our first storm together. Heartfelt applause rippled through the guests. My eyes misted as I watched Zoe secure my grandmother's salvaged lace brooch, the one piece we'd managed to save, to the center of my new dress's bodice. There, she said, stepping back with tears in her eyes. You look absolutely radiant, Lydia, like someone who just broke free. This dress wasn't what I'd envisioned wearing when I became Mrs. Hayes. But as I gazed at my reflection, a profound realization struck me. It embodied everything I truly was: resilient, forward-thinking, and prepared for life's unexpected turns. The simplicity highlighted my strength rather than trying to meet someone else's expectations. Malcolm knocked gently on the door before entering. His eyes widened appreciatively, a genuine smile transforming his weathered face. Lydia, you look stunning, he said, then paused, his expression clouding with regret. I know it's not my place, but I want to apologize for Diana's behavior. Griffin mentioned your difficult relationship with her, but this was beyond comprehension. You have nothing to apologize for, Malcolm, I replied, feeling lighter somehow. You didn't destroy my dress or try to control my life for 36 years. He nodded gratefully, relief evident in his expression. Griffin asked me to tell you everything's ready whenever you are. His eyes twinkled with unexpected mischief. Your business partner Nolan is here documenting everything. He says this will make for, and I quote, the most authentic and powerful wedding portfolio Philadelphia's elite have ever seen. I laughed, this sound surprising me with its genuine joy. Trust Nolan to see the marketing potential even in this disaster. The event planning world had taught me that the most memorable experiences often emerge from seemingly catastrophic moments. The venue coordinator appeared, clipboard still clutched tightly. We're ready when you are, Ms. Beckman. The string quartet has been informed, and we've adjusted the lighting design to perfectly complement your new ensemble." "One moment," I said, a professional instinct surfacing. "Is the video feed still active?" When she confirmed it was, I made a decision that felt both personal and symbolic. Let's keep it projected in the ceremony space. I want everyone to witness us walking, from here to there, the complete journey through this challenge, not just the polished end result. 10 minutes later, as my bridesmaids and I made our way through the historic venue's stone pathway toward the ceremony space, my heart pounded with each step. I felt the weight of dozens of eyes watching through the projected video feed. This wasn't just a bride walking to her wedding. This was a woman who had finally drawn a boundary that should have been established decades ago. The soft string music floated through the open doors as we approached, mingling with the growing sounds of spontaneous applause. I felt a surge of emotion tightening my throat as I caught sight of Griffin waiting for me at the entrance, his eyes shining with what looked suspiciously like tears. "Are you ready to begin our real life together?" he asked softly, taking my hands in his. The warmth of his touch sent waves of certainty through me. "I've never been more ready for anything," I replied, my voice steady despite the emotional storm inside me. I squeezed his fingers, drawing strength from their solidity. The ceremony that unfolded bore little resemblance to our meticulously planned rehearsal, yet it resonated with an authenticity that no amount of planning could have created. As Griffin and I walked down the aisle together, my deliberate choice, symbolizing that I was giving myself to this marriage, the guests rose in unified support. Their faces reflected not just celebration but profound understanding of what had transpired, many of the women nodding with knowing expressions that spoke of their own complicated family relationships. Malcolm stood tall and dignified in the front row, occasionally glancing with pointed significance at the conspicuously empty seat where Diana should have been. When our eyes met briefly, his contained a mixture of compassion and resolve that made me feel truly welcomed into his family. Our celebrant, Judge Harriet Waters, chosen for her progressive views on family, adapted magnificently to the charged atmosphere. "Dear friends and chosen family," she began, her voice carrying authority and warmth, "we are gathered today to witness not simply a union of two people, but a powerful testament to creating healthy boundaries and choosing love over obligation. Lydia and Griffin have already navigated their first significant challenge as partners, demonstrating the strength, mutual respect, and unflinching support that forms the true foundation of lasting commitment." During our vows, Griffin added words that hadn't been rehearsed, but felt desperately needed in that moment. "I promise to honor your independence and the boundaries you set," he said, his voice strong and clear enough to reach every corner of the room and beyond to those watching the video feed. "I will stand beside you against anyone who fails to respect your choices, especially if that person shares my name or yours." The profound silence that followed these words spoke volumes about their impact on everyone present. When the moment came to exchange rings, I noticed a flicker of concern cross Griffin's face. The special box containing them had been in my mother's possession earlier. Malcolm immediately stepped forward, producing the elegant velvet case from his jacket pocket. "I anticipated we might need these," he explained with a gentle wink. "Old habits from the construction business. Always secure the most valuable materials yourself." After Judge Waters pronounced us husband and wife, the celebration that erupted seemed to release years of tension, not just from the day's drama, but from a lifetime of suppressed authenticity. As we walked back down the aisle together, I caught sight of Nolan capturing everything with his camera. He gave me a subtle nod that somehow communicated both professional appreciation and personal pride in what we'd all witnessed. The reception held in the Historic Society's Grand Hall pulsed with an energy I'd never felt at any wedding, including the hundreds I'd planned professionally. Rather than the usual polite small talk and predictable traditions, there was an electric current of collective solidarity running through the room. Someone in Zoe's network had quickly designed a custom social media filter featuring a butterfly emerging from flames with our names beneath it. "Your wedding is exploding across social platforms," Madison whispered excitedly. As we entered the reception, her phone screen illuminated with notifications. The hashtags "Choose Your Own Path" and "Boundaries Not Burdens" are trending all over Philadelphia wedding circles. Griffin's colleague Charlotte, who ran a respected lifestyle blog, approached us with her tablet displaying multiple interview requests. The Philadelphia Inquirer and 3 major wedding publications won exclusive statements. She explained, her eyes bright with professional excitement. The editor at Modern Bride witnessed everything through the video. Her daughter apparently works with your catering team, and they're calling this the wedding that redefined mother-daughter relationships. Tell them we're grateful for the outpouring of support. Griffin replied, his arm protectively around my waist, the warmth of his touch grounding me, and that sometimes the most important commitment isn't just to your partner, but to your own authentic self within that partnership. I lean into him, overwhelmed by both exhaustion and exhilaration, and that sometimes the path to a healthy marriage requires setting painful, but necessary boundaries with family. As the evening unfolded, I noticed Malcolm engaged in serious conversations with various guests, his construction forged diplomacy evident in his measured gestures and thoughtful expressions. Griffin's Aunt Elena approached our table during the meal, bending down to speak confidentially. Malcolm is deeply shaken, she revealed, her perfume bringing memories of my own absent mother. Diana has been taken home, but she's already called 3 times threatening to contact all her society connections if Griffin doesn't reconsider this mistake. Malcolm told her quite directly that after today's display, she should worry about her own standing in Philadelphia's wedding industry. Griffin gently squeezed my fingers under the table, the pressure communicating volumes. Dad has always been the true foundation of emotional stability in our family, he reflected. He supported me when I chose architecture over joining his construction company. Mom never realized he was the one who encouraged my independence all along. During our first dance, I couldn't help noticing the conspicuously empty tables near the front, spaces reserved for my mother's fashion industry connections, who had discreetly vanished after the incident. Their absence felt less like a loss, and more like shedding an uncomfortable garment. In their places, my own clients and industry colleagues had moved forward, filling the void with authentic connection. Malcolm is managing the aftermath with remarkable grace, Nolan observed, joining us after our dance with flutes of champagne. His familiar presence felt comforting amid the day's chaos. He's personally connecting with each guest, ensuring everyone feels valued, while subtly making it clear that Dinah's enablers won't be missed at future family gatherings. Griffin nodded, watching his father with newfound appreciation. I think this is the first time I've seen him publicly acknowledge what he's privately known for years, he said thoughtfully. Even after their divorce, he always managed the peace for my sake. Today was the day he finally prioritized truth over harmony. The wedding photographer, originally recommended by my mother, approached us with professional caution. Mrs. Hayes, the new Mrs. Hayes, she clarified with warmth. I've captured some truly powerful moments today, but I wanted to discuss the dress incident sensitively. Several guests have images on their phones. Would you prefer we request those remain private? I exchanged a meaningful look with Griffin before responding, a lifetime of hiding difficult truths suddenly seeming exhausting. Actually, I think authenticity matters most here. This is an integral part of our journey now. As if confirming my decision, my phone vibrated with an alert. The video of my mother destroying my dress had already been viewed over 50,000 times on a major wedding industry platform. The comments section brimmed with support, interspersed with deeply personal stories from women who had navigated difficult maternal relationships during significant life transitions. You've inadvertently sparked something important, Nolan observed, scrolling through the rapidly multiplying responses. Setting boundaries with toxic family members, especially on your wedding day, is clearly touching a nerve for countless women. Griffin's cousin Rachel appeared beside our table, her expression a complex mixture of embarrassment and resolve. I need you both to know that many of us have seen Diana's controlling behavior for years, she said, her voice steady despite her evident discomfort. What happened today wasn't a shocking aberration, it was just the first time. She couldn't hide it behind closed doors. Thank you, Rachel, I replied, a wave of validation washing through me. That acknowledgement means more than you can possibly know. As the evening unfolded, Griffin received a text from his father. He read it silently, his expression shifting through several emotions before showing me the screen. Diana has barricaded herself in her condo and is calling everyone in her contact list. She's insisting I convince Griffin to reconsider this disaster of a marriage before you return from your honeymoon. I've informed her that after today's performance, she should worry about her own business relationships, not yours. Her actions have only confirmed what I've suspected for years about her treatment of you. We'll discuss options when you're back. Incredibly proud of both of you. Oh, Dad, are you holding up okay? I asked Griffin softly, studying his face for any traces of regret or uncertainty. My stomach tightened with lingering anxiety, a lifetime habit of worrying about other people's feelings before my own. I'm better than okay, he answered, his fingers intertwining with mine with reassuring firmness. For years, I've watched from the sidelines as your mother subtly undermined your confidence, dismissed your accomplishments, and manipulated events to maintain control. Today, she finally revealed what was always beneath the surface, not just to us, but to everyone. It feels like we can finally breathe freely. As the celebration continued into the night, I noticed a remarkable transformation taking place around us. Guests who had initially seemed reserved and cautious, my mother's fashion industry connections, and social acquaintances, were gradually relaxing, engaging in genuine conversations with Griffin's friends and my professional network. Without my mother's calculated social orchestration, the artificial hierarchy she'd always enforced was evaporating. Mrs. Hayes, the venue coordinator, approached, her earlier anxiety replaced. With warm excitement, "There's something quite special you need to see." She guided us toward the ballroom entrance. There, displayed on an elegant antique easel, stood a large ornate frame filled with dozens of handwritten cards from guests. The heading, in beautiful calligraphy, read, "Messages of strength and new beginnings for Lydia and Griffin." "Your bridesmaids created this after what happened," she explained. "They asked everyone to share their thoughts about boundaries, family relationships, and starting marriage on your own terms." 1 week into our honeymoon at a secluded Fiji resort, the ripple effects of our wedding day continued to expand. Griffin and I lounged on our private villas, deck overlooking turquoise waters, scrolling through messages during our agreed-upon hour of reconnecting with the outside world. "Dad says Mom's holed up at her sister's place in New York," Griffin said, putting his phone down on the teak side table. "Apparently, Aunt Caroline is the only person still entertaining her version of events, that she was testing the fabric quality for safety concerns, and everyone catastrophically misinterpreted her intentions." I couldn't help but laugh, the sound freer than I could remember it being in years. Pretty difficult to misinterpret. "Now you can't wear this monstrosity," while actively setting fire to a wedding dress containing family heirlooms. The story had spread far beyond Philadelphia, transforming from a shocking wedding day disaster into a meaningful conversation about mother-daughter relationships, the pressure of wedding perfection, and establishing healthy boundaries. Several major publications had reached out requesting in-depth features about navigating complex family dynamics during significant life transitions. Nolan says our company has received 15 new client inquiries specifically requesting the team that stands up for authentic wedding experiences, I said, showing Griffin my business partner's enthusiastic message. He's asking if we consider developing a workshop series about maintaining personal boundaries during wedding planning when we return. Griffin took my hand, his thumb tracing the outline of my wedding band with tender thoughtfulness. "We'll only do it if it feels right for you. This is your story to share or keep private as you choose." I thought about the hundreds of messages we'd received from women describing their own complicated maternal relationships and the courage our story had given them. "Perhaps our experience can help others navigate these waters," I said, feeling a sense of purpose emerging from the pain. "Not exactly how I envisioned beginning our marriage, but real," Griffin completed, his eyes reflecting the same certainty I felt. "Authentically, yes." 3 months after our wedding, Griffin and I attended the opening of the Philadelphia Architectural Society's charity exhibition, our first formal public event since returning from our honeymoon. The fundraiser, which would have typically included my mother among its organizing committee, had been reimagined with Malcolm's significant input. "Feeling anxious?" Griffin asked gently as our car approached the elegant museum entrance, his hand finding mine in a gesture that had become our silent reassurance. "More than I expected," I confessed, smoothing the folds of my gown. a breathtaking midnight blue creation from Winifred's rival design house, who had cleverly transformed our wedding story into an empowering campaign about authenticity and choosing your own path. Inside, the atmosphere felt remarkably different from previous society gatherings I'd attended with my mother. The usual rigid social hierarchies had dissolved into genuine connection. Malcolm greeted us at the entrance, his face more relaxed and animated than I'd ever seen it. "Here they are," he exclaimed, embracing us both with unexpected warmth. The couple whose story inspired our foundation's newest initiative. He guided us toward an elegantly designed display showcasing the Hayes Family Foundation's latest program, True Self Weddings, a nonprofit initiative providing planning services and support for couples navigating complicated family dynamics. The foundation's new logo featured a subtle butterfly emerging from a cocoon, symbolic of transformation and freedom. "We've already provided assistance to 12 couples," Malcolm explained, undisguised pride brightening his weathered features, each one determined to create a ceremony that reflects their authentic selves despite family pressure. As we moved through the crowd, I noticed how my mother's absence had transformed the guest list. Missing were the social climbers and fashion industry power players she always insisted were essential connections, replaced by people with genuine passion for architectural preservation and community support. Mrs. Hayes, a young woman, approached, her handshake firm and confident. "I'm one of the True Self Weddings beneficiaries. Your story gave me the strength to tell my father I wouldn't be wearing his mother's outdated dress that made me miserable. My fiancé and I are creating our own traditions now." Later that evening, as Griffin and I shared a private moment on the museum's rooftop garden overlooking the city lights, his phone buzzed with a message. "Mom's attending a small bridal show in Center City next week," he said, his expression carefully measured. "Dad says she's requested a brief meeting with you, if you're comfortable with it. No pressure either way." I squeezed his hand, feeling stronger than I had in 36 years. "Whatever happens with your mother, with my mother, we'll navigate it together, just like we did with the wedding." He smiled, drawing me close against the cool evening air. Some relationships burn to ashes. Others transform through fire into something authentic and unbreakable.